Good cutting enhances the quality of good meat. In his way, the meat cutter is an artist. Poor cutting results in an inferior piece of meat, regardless of quality.
All right, we're doing an Instagram live that will later be turned into a episode of the Meat Block podcast, and I just wanted to, um, just Mike, tell us about yourself real quick.
You got it. You got it. So first of all, guys, really appreciate the invite to be on here. And I've been doing packaging for 26 years. Got to start in the industry by being an operations manager to a production company, and really found I took a liking to packaging, and owner of a packaging company who's a former R&D expert and scientist from DuPont took me under his wing 20 years ago and taught me the craft of films, and we went about the market very different than any other packaging company I've ever seen. We went after projects that were unique and had custom applications to them, and we did a lot of design work. And through those 26 years, I was able to pick up many different packaging lines in the protein industry. And when Bunzl bought out our company, that was a venue for Bunzl to then create a packaging department within their organization. And we've been able to go out and do a great job of having not only our distribution model, but having the expertise on staff, including service, able to go out and service that protein industry.
Awesome. Well, Mike, we've been talking. Can you hear me fine?
I can hear you great. Yep.
Awesome.
Everything coming through okay?
Yeah, everything's coming through on our end. I wanted to introduce you to David, who you haven't met before or talked to before. So David's the podcast co-host. He's been in the industry, worked in a wide variety of size plants from large to small cut and wrap. So I figured having him on to help go through your expertise would be good.
Yeah, good to meet
Perfect.
you. I'm very excited to be able to talk to you. In the various places where I work, I also do some consulting with plants around the country, and the biggest thing that everybody wants to talk about is competitive packaging and what's out there in the market and what people are doing and what's going to help support their value proposition the most, right? And so I'm not a packaging expert, so I'm very excited to talk to you today, and thank you so much for joining us on here.
Well, you know what's going to be fun here tonight, guys, is that there's so much mystique around packaging and misinformation, and of course you've got companies who are trying to sell their product, and as companies go into these processing plants, they've got a product to sell. The difference with us is that we are a distributor. We've got 32,000 different items in our book of business, but in packaging, we don't just have to sell what our particular plant sells or what we make. We can sell what's right for the customer, come in and really take a look at their product, really listen, and be able to come in and solve problems. And I think that's where we're making a big difference to the industry.
Yeah, I know. You don't know this, but you Bunzl and your packaging team has helped me in countless ways over the years, and so you've got just so many different products and so many different solutions, and you guys are always there to answer questions. So it's been very much appreciated by a lot of people.
Yep. You got it. Today we spent today, we're in Southern California, and we were helping out some meat plants today. We did a trial on a roll stock forming, non-forming application. And what was great about that is that we had a machine that was it was a multivac machine in great shape, running great. We put our film on there. It ran fantastic, but we were able to give that customer some suggestions. Hey, you're doing this, but if you do this, you're going to get better production, better speed. Your clarity can be better. And that's what's really rewarding to us when we go out there and we're at these plants and we can just tweak things to make that better, make them more successful at what they do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, talking about how we have small, cut and wrap facilities to, mid-size to big plants. At what point do what's the best for like a custom, what do you recommend for like a custom exempt who's used to paper wrapping, who's not doing that many head? And at what point should they look into getting like a swing chamber or a single chamber, or at what point do they need to develop or grow? I mean,
Sure. And there's a lot of things to consider here. It's not just their growth, but it's also the quality of the product they're putting out and how long they want that product to be good at their customers. They process a side of beef with a small plant, and they sell that to an individual. They want that product it's gotta withstand a year in a freezer without having the freezer burn. So what is the right time to switch from a butcher wrap getting into a single chamber machine? How do they know to pay the extra money for a dual chamber machine? And beyond that, when do you switch, and what parameters do you need to look at for when you switch to a roll stock forming, non-forming machine? So that question is just absolutely perfect. And let's take you through some of that. So a lot of it comes down to, right now we're in a labor situation. Every plant across the country seems to be short on labor. And if you're hand wrapping every piece, you need labor for doing that. When you invest into a P300 tabletop vacuum machine and you're buying pre-made pouches, your investment in doing that is buying cases at a single case at a time. You can buy a pallet of cases, different sizes. The pouches are available. We make our own pouches, by the way, and they're available everything from a 4x6, out to a 14 by 32 inch pouch, right? So the whole gauntlet of different sizes. But you can buy exactly what you need, and your investment in the cases is relatively small. When you're producing, the difference between a single up tabletop machine and a dual chamber machine is that single up chamber machine, you're doing one cycle at a time, and you've got to be waiting for that cycle while you're packing the next meat into that next pouch, right? So it's really a one at a time situation. Whereas if you have a dual chamber machine, as that top comes over and seals what you've already been working on, and you're sealing upwards of 12 packed pouches on one side, you can be filling that other side. You can have multiple employees filling that other side. And while that cycle is happening, you fill that, it then cycles over to the other side. So you're going back and forth on that type of application. But it's so critical to understand what your dollar investment is, and then what you have to invest within your facility as well. What type of air system are you having? What type of energy system do you have to put into that plant? And those are all things that our service department is very capable of helping you calculate, from the electrical load to air compressors, anything that you need to be able to switch that over and consider that investment.
So I've got a quick question. I think this might be kind of useful for myself included, but a lot of our listeners, just to walk it back a little bit, right? We everybody knows butcher wrap, the white paper, the white freezer paper. It's classic, it's timeless. But freezer burn, it's a real thing, right? It happens. It degrades the quality of your product. You forget about something in the bottom of the freezer. You open it up a year and a half later, and you can't even tell what it is, right? Can you walk us through kind of the different packaging formats that you have? I've extensively used vacuum chamber machines, thermoforming machines, but I've been seeing a lot of things out in the marketplace. I work with co-packers a lot. I link up plants with co-packers, and we're seeing a lot of different things. Like I hear terms like mat packing and tray packing and skin packing. Could you walk us through these different formats and what they mean and what they look like and the applications when you might decide to go with one of those over another?
Not only that, I've got some samples here with me. So I'll do a little show and tell as I talk about what each one is.
Very cool.
So why don't we go through, and I'm going to, here for the next few minutes, I'm going to show you several different samples. And I'll talk about each one, but I'll be very basic with each one. And then we can go back and talk about when that's the right application for your size shop, as well as what type of shelf life you're trying to get on the marketplace with each one of these applications. So what we'll do is we'll go through first and just take you through the different types of packaging to consider. And then we'll get some questions based off of that.
Okay.
So let's start. So first thing here is we've got some Chubb packaging. right?
Mhm.
So these are typical tipper tie type of packaging. And there's different kinds of chubs, and it's really important for your base to understand that a chub like this with a back seam on it,
Mhm.
this is actually a flat film, and it's highly printed. You could also have it just be clear, and
wow.
this is a high barrier package. And a package like this is great for when you're trying to do different graphics in you've got 4 or 5 different items in a line. You're going to see your larger plants are going to be using a cartridge pack type of pack like this, whereas a package like this, you see that there's no seam around that package. This is a true singular uh, package that is going to be sheared, right? And so when you have this sheared, you're going to have to change those shears out in the packaging of this. So if you've been in a plant and you've seen it looks like a bunch of wrinkled material, that goes onto the shearing horn, and the product then comes through, gets tipper tied on the end, and then you change that out. It's about probably every 3-4 minutes you're going to be changing that out to the next package, and run that through the plant. A lot of considerations for what type of barrier you're going to do. You could do these as basic as a polyethylene type of material. You could also do these as a high barrier. When you've got a casing like this, a lot of times you'll hear someone refer to it as a crushed bubble. And really, what you're doing is that when you extrude this product, you're actually taking that extrusion that is upwards of 7 layers, and you're actually crushing that bubble. So now it's 13 layers, right? The middle layer becomes 1, and that's what you're actually making the material out of. So a lot of different ways of how casings can be made, and the critical part is just understanding that there's different methods, and based upon how you're going to print it or not print it will help determine which one you're going to go with. So that's one of the basics way to do ground meat. Another one here is that you reference map packaging, right? So you can see the dome on the top of this package,
Mhm.
right? There has been an air pressure put inside this package, and it's not just air, it's a gas that has flushed out oxygen and replaced that with a nitrogen mixture. This is what they're referring to when they say it's a MAP package, modified atmosphere packaging, right?
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so this package is a high barrier tray in the bottom. It can be a black tray, it can be clear, works for many different products, pre-made meals, things of that sort.
Mhm.
But this is another very common way to do ground or many other type of products. This is another one, same type of thing, where you've got pre-made patties in it, pre-seasoned pre-made patties. So very much the same as this. And we'll talk a little bit about pre-made trays and forming trays.
Mhm.
Next, let's look at this is probably one of your most common for the plants that are investing past the dual chamber machine that we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to be your forming, non-forming film. You got a formed film here on the bottom that's originally was flat when you put it on the machine and you
Mhm.
formed it, and you've got a flat top. This can be clear film, it can be black, it can be printed. So a lot of different ways that you can make this package. You've got this where it is retailed so that the retail is on the bottom of the package,
Mhm.
and then you've got a pre-printed here on the back side. So this package can be retailed in many different ways. This is what you're really seeing common for your mass production in your large grocery chains.
And that one's also known as roll stock.
This is known as your roll stock forming, non-forming. You probably made it most famous was doing your hot dog packages back in the day.
Okay.
It's very much the same way. So these packages are exactly the same machine, just a different forming chamber to create the shape for the product that you're putting in that.
And different labels in yeah.
Very much so. Yeah, very much so. This is printed. Matter of fact, Johnny, can you hand me that right there? I've got the other one. Yeah.
So
I've got Johnny Rojas here. He's our sales rep to the Southern California, helped me in the background today.
Oh,
so
nice.
appreciate
Thanks,
his help.
Thank you.
You just got to thank you there. Hey, so this is very much what a roll stock print looks like. And this is how you would buy it on the machine. So the machine's going to run multiple across the web. And that can make it very confusing when you start talking about how do I figure my pricing?
Yeah.
So when you talk about per each pricing, you're talking about one selling unit. However, when you buy it, you can see that this particular one which is a 406 non-forming web, is 3 across the web. So depending upon what size of machine that you're going to buy, you can get these webs to be very large. That makes the machine very efficient, but you have to have a lot of production to pay for that extra width.
So what you're saying is that one single thermoforming or roll stock machine can have multiple pouches that it forms. So you can do multiple products with it. It's not just one. You can't just do ground beef on it. You can do multiple things with a changeover of some kind.
That's exactly true. So the nice thing on a roll stock forming, non-forming machine is that you can have different die sets. You can have one big die formed. Let's say you're doing a 5 pound of shredded pork. You could have 1 5 pound block of shredded pork, or you could have that where you're doing something like snack sticks. The same machine does this package, right?
Okay.
So we've all seen this one around the marketplace. Now this one's very unique because you got printing on the back side as well as printing on the front side.
Interesting.
And this is a great retail package. It's been around for a number of years, and they've done some nice upgrades to it. But this same machine is this same machine, right? Slightly different specs. But whenever you see one side formed, one side flat, you know that you're talking roll stock forming, non-forming. And this alone is probably a show in its own self, right? Where you've got different barrier films, and you've got properties where you have films you could cook in this product. We just got done doing one a couple weeks ago where we are packaging a hot meat product, sealing it up, freezing it, then pasteurizing it, then refreezing that product, and then shipping off to another country, all in the same film. And it's an extremely versatile way to go to market and help that the packaging actually becomes part of the process of the product. So, the world of meat packaging has gone well beyond just trying to take a product that used to spoil in 7 days and taking it beyond that 35-day shelf life. Now you're actually using the packaging to become part of the product as well.
That's incredible.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So it sounds like, I mean, that just inspires me off the bat. We've made like capicolas or like a Parisian style ham in the past, something like that, where we've had to poach it or sous vide it in a really labor intensive process. But if you took something like this and took it out of the brine, put it into the pouch, potentially cooked it, steamed it, poached it, whatever in a combi oven or what have you, you could then cool it and sell it in that same package?
Yes, you can.
That's blowing my mind right now.
and it's not everything. You really have to know what you're doing in selling this packaging when you get into those complicated scenarios, right? If you put the wrong packaging in, you could delaminate. You could have migrations of polymers coming through the film if you use the wrong film. There's certain things where you don't want a peelable film if you're also cooking. You're going to take that film and peel it right in the cooking process. So you've got to understand what those individual specs are, and that not every film is available for every application. But it's fantastic where you can take these machines. I've got a package here that you're going to be blown away. This can be the exact same machine, right? We've all seen something like this on the show. Pre-printed flat film, forming film, but in this case, this is what we call semi-rigid. So this package doesn't hold its own shape, right? I can squeeze and move that package. This is semi-rigid. It holds its own shape like a pre-made tray does. But I'm forming this on the same machine. Just the die shape is slightly different. I'm getting more across the web, and I'm putting a pre-printed film across the top. And I'm making it with a peelable feature. So the die set, when you buy the machine, you want to buy the machine with a die set that can already take a peelable piece. So now I can peel that up. This package is not peelable, right? So it's sealed all the way to the edge. There's nothing to grab to pull up.
And that's the same machine. So, but you'd be buying different, material for your trays at that point.
Very much so. The operator who's buying this machine is probably going to buy the same machine brand, but a different machine for this, because semi-rigid, you don't want to have a square corner here. See how that's a rounded corner? That's a square corner. that's nice and soft. I can push on that. That's fine. If this had a square corner with a semi-rigid, that is a potential poking hazard. I might poke a hole in the package next to it. I might poke a hole in my own finger. So there are some specifications that when you buy these roll stock forming, non-forming machines, you have to know beforehand, am I going to make this package or am I going to make this package? And you can convert that machine to do both, but you better know that before you make your investment, because retrofitting these machines can get very, very expensive.
Yeah, and I also just imagine ripping tons of grocery bags with that corner as well.
Those high density bags would just shear right through.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly that. Yeah. I was looking, here's another semi-rigid. This is getting pretty popular. We're seeing deli meats, or you're seeing layered deli meats, semi-rigid bottom. Now this is a lot thinner film. I can actually push in on that, but again, it's the same type of concept as what you're seeing there. So it's amazing what you can do with either a label or pre-printed film. And I must mention this. I deal with this probably 3 days out of a 5-day week. People asking about printed film, and the minimums to do pre-printed compared to a non-printed film where you do a label are astronomical. The difference between your minimums. So, that's a very serious conversation. And on day one, we take our customers through that so that they have the right expectation.
No, that said, if you have a much higher minimum for the printed film, is Bunzl in a position to, can you buy that minimum, but then only have it distributed just a fraction of it at a time? Does Bunzl have any sort of warehousing where you're able to just, as I say, I don't have a whole lot of room in my small plant. I can't necessarily store all 10 pallets. Let's just say that's a minimum. Can you deliver one a month, or what have you? Something like that.
Right. So we absolutely. So one thing critical in our industry is the minute I print this, this is the only company it's good for. So we have to have an ironclad agreement that no matter what you do in production, if you have me, let's say you have us print 5 million square inches or square feet of material, and you are only take a quarter of that, and then you decide that you're not going to have this go to market anymore, we do have an ironclad contract that the rest of it still is yours, even though that you have not actually physically paid for it yet. So, and I don't want to scare people away from that. We do this. This is one of the services that we do as Bunzl. Why you would look at a distributor like us to create your packaging for you. And it's very real reasons like this. It's all about freed up cash flow. And so if we produce something like this, we'll warehouse that. We have our contract with you, right? We're ironclad with each other on it. Happy to do it. And then we'll distribute that out to you. And then we have a limitation on how long that we will hold that product. But it's a fantastic opportunity for a company who's trying to have the image that they're larger than what they are, but just can't afford to do that print run yet. Well, we can bridge that gap. And here's the next best thing about that is that we don't just have one printer. We've got several printers. So when we take your job, we're not just saying, well, this is your price and your minimum. We've got printers who do digital printing, right? Extremely small minimums. It's a high price per impression. But if you just want to dip your toe into a project, we had one yesterday where the customer literally has invented a new product, didn't know if the market would accept it or not. And we did digital print for the first run. And yesterday we met with them to switch that over to flexographic printing, because now he's ready to pay for printing plates and ready to do a much larger print run. And he also learned some things. I need to make some changes. Some of the print that you did for me isn't actually what I really wanted, right? Can you imagine if you did printing plates and you had 10 items in a line and you printed all those printing plates, and now you got to make a change after the first run? You got to pay for those printing plates again.
Yeah.
So, when looking at this, what we do, instead of just saying yes and try to sell you what you're asking us to produce, we go at this and we make sure you understand what the commitments are that you're making when you do this. And we have in-house graphic artists. She's fantastic. She'll help take you through the entire process.
I've got two burning questions. Do you mind if I just?
Yeah.
Okay. These are ones that I get asked all the time, because Travis and I work with a lot of small plants that want to become more competitive. We're in a very unique season in American food history right now, where a lot of small producers have the ability to go to market, whether it's in a co-op model or in the local producers program at like Whole Foods or even the farmers market. The standard for the farmers market product is getting very, very competitive, right? And so we deal with this all the time, and people like are really very fascinated and tempted by the thermoforming machine, but they have a couple of really burning questions. And the first of which is, let's just talk raw ground, raw non intact, right?
Mm-hmm.
What can we? Let's just say we've got an industry standard, pretty robust master sanitation program. We feel really good about our environmental controls in the plant. We're just going to take that control out of the question. What are we looking at as an average shelf life for a fresh ground beef? Or maybe said differently, what can we expect to be different between a vacuum chamber ground beef 1 pound pack versus a roll stock? Is there a difference in fresh shelf life?
There is a difference. There really is. So let me take you through a couple, and this will help, I think, guide your answer. So a package like this that you're putting in an inert gas inside this package, you're going to get around 23 days on this package. Okay. On a package like this, depending upon what your material is, you're going to get between 12 and 23 days on a chub type of package. And on a package like this, you're going to get around 34 days. Now, I want to preface anything that I'm saying here is nothing replaces getting your lab work done. You've got to get your lab work done and take a look at what you're getting. Now, here's what can make a huge difference. If I want this to be a bright red color, right? So I want my oxymytobin to be extremely red. I got to put this in at most a medium barrier film. That's going to drop my shelf life less than half, right? So this is a high barrier package. I have EVOH in this package. That's going to give me the absolute maximum return. So when you're talking about that shelf life question, do I have a gas in here that's going to turn it nice and red, but it's going to limit my shelf life down, or do I have maximum returns? That it's the most confusing question out there in the marketplace, and we're finding that depending on who you ask is what the answer that you get. Now, if you're asking a machine sales location, they want to sell you a machine and they make this machine, I mean, obviously the answer is going to be, this is the way to go. Well, it's good to ask multiple sources who have different motivations for their answer for you, and ultimately get it tested so you understand where you're going with that product.
Sure.
Yeah. That's why I've seen on some packages that color is not an indication of freshness.
Yeah.
Can I show you something since you just said that?
Yeah.
You're going to be blown away by this. You know what? I don't want to embarrass this company, so I'm going to cover up their label as I show you this. Okay. But here you have a bacon product. I don't know if that color's coming through.
It's not.
But that is brown as brown can get.
Yeah, it's brown.
It's pretty bad.
Oh, okay.
It looks like
now they've
just a salt belly or something.
Yeah.
It's so brown. Yeah.
It's a hickory smoked, and it's this is just PVC overwrap. PVC overwrap is nothing different than putting a dust cover over the product, right? There's no barrier there whatsoever.
Oh, okay.
Then you have a standard retail package. You can obviously see the color difference,
Very
right?
different.
So, when a product gets in that stage, it doesn't mean necessarily that it's bad, but how does the consumer how can they make that determination? Because color change is one of the things that we're talking about. Hey, what really is, the determination that something has gone bad? Is it rancidity, or is it color? Is it taste? Is it texture? Right? All those things can create a product why you consider it bad.
Sure.
And the wrong packaging can really send you down the wrong path here.
Yeah, and people do most of their shopping with their eyes first.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
without a doubt.
And we know that in meat cutting that we want the first thing to be visually appealing. And
yeah, that's interesting.
Well, the biggest thing is that here in the U.S. market, we like our meat to be red, right? But as you would know, purple meat actually means the product that's going to stay shelf stable the longest, right? Because you've removed the oxygen. So your hemoglobin has not interacted with oxygen. It has not plumed to be red. So it's hard in this country necessarily to push the large box store to have that longest shelf life possible, their customers want that deep red color when they purchase it. And so that's where you get creative with some other ways of packaging. One very common thing to do is when you get to that larger box store is that you mother bag a product, or it's also known as a CVP bag to mention a brand. What you have there is that you have a package where you might have a package like this
Mhm.
that is actually been injected with your carbon dioxide so that it will turn red. But then you put it into an outside package that actually has its barrier. So this actually doesn't react with oxygen yet until the point that you open up the outer package and you expose this package to the
Okay.
oxygen, and now it turns red. Now you've got your 7-day shelf life, and it stays beautiful red for that entire time. So there's ways of extending your shelf life when you have longer distance to transport. And that's probably not the way that your average smaller butcher shop that's got maybe their first roll stock machine, the way that they're going to do it. But
Mhm.
as they progress through it, there's other technology that companies use.
Yeah, but I think just knowing that alone, or even our listeners, just who are meat nerds, would just appreciate knowing that. So,
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, there's other options. And this, it's amazing where this is going. This is probably the more common European form that you're seeing right now, and it's really coming across in the United States. But there's a couple forms of this. So when this is
well,
where it looks like your meat's coming off of a card, right?
Yeah.
This is
yeah.
a smoked fish product. This is another fish product. So what you've got here, this is what's called the VSP. So this is not a shrink, but it's a skin film. And so it works much like a roll stock machine. So this bottom, what looks like a tray,
Mhm.
is actually thermoformed,
Okay.
no different than how that bottom is thermoformed, right? Both thermoformed, but the top film isn't a lay flat film, it's a skin film. I almost call this, it looks like a picture of food than actual food, right? Because
Yeah.
it has that glossy look, but it's right down on the product. This is one of the best ways to extend your shelf life.
Really?
But you are adding some expenses here.
Mhm.
You've got a heavier tray on the bottom. So there's just the poundage of film that you're using here, right? So typically more expensive cuts you're going to see in this type of package.
Mhm.
And that's why you're seeing like the expensive type of, a fish cut like that. And in this case, this is actually a formed piece, very slightly formed on the bottom there, but it
Mhm.
is formed. There's a card trapped in there, and then
Okay.
that skin film is over the top of that product. Very much like the roll stock forming, non-forming, but just a little different technology. You're going to get less cycles per minute with this because of how the process is to
Mhm.
blow this film up and then skin it over the top.
Yeah.
But a lot of different ways to go about it. It's just important to know that you're adding more materials there, less
Sure.
cycles per minute. All that adds to the bottom line of your cost to get product out.
Yeah, but I mean, looking at let's just say in an ideal situation, a 25 to 34-day shelf life, even for a small plant, is considerable. Because most small plants have to have an exclusively frozen program because they're only
Yeah.
getting 8 to 12 days shelf life on a ground beef in a more basic packaging type. And just to hear that with the roll stock and with the VSP is really encouraging. Would you say the VSP is somewhat similar as far as shelf life goes
Sure,
to
you'll
thermoform?
find you'll find documentation out there that says that this with a ground beef in it that you're looking at 35 days.
Phew.
Now, right, so that is now it's I want to be careful here because we're
Sure,
talking shelf life and
sure.
people are I hope they're taking notes. But many large producers who make 10-pound chubs of ground beef will take those and ship those off to another meat plant who then open those up and they'll do the regrind, and they might take that product out of a 10-pound version of this and pack it at store level in a package that looks like
Mm-hmm.
this. So you're not going to get that same shelf life after this has already had a maximum of 23 days shelf life. It's been shipped. Now it's here. You've reground it. Now you're talking more something around 12 to 11 days shelf life in this final retail display. So, I just want to be careful when we talk shelf lives. We want to know exactly how it's being handled, and temperature is absolutely critical.
Mhm.
Just a couple degrees can greatly change your shelf life by multiple days.
Absolutely. Yeah, we've both had experience with plants that had that had suboptimal master sanitation programs, and it showed up in the shelf life. Just from yeast and mold spores alone can really have such a huge effect. So sanitation cycles and the ways that we clean our plants are so important to get that ROI on our packaging materials.
Yeah, and I also just want to say, if you're listening or watching this, um, do your validation studies and also go based off of the local and federal regulations. Do your homework as well. So yeah.
You got that right. I pulled a pouch just from the store for our presentation. It's one of the only ones I could find there at the store. But this
you're making me
pouch
hungry,
product,
Mike. All this food that you're showing us it's dinner time over here.
Well, I've got to get on an airplane tomorrow. So Johnny, who's standing here next to me, is actually salivating, knowing that I can't take this on an airplane. His family's not going to have to buy any meat products for about at least the next 2 weeks. So, but yeah, it's a standard pouch is considered a medium barrier. When you're buying product like this and you're buying a high barrier, it's very important to understand the permeability differences of films. And that's something that we can definitely take you through. But you've got to understand there's really two key critical components there. You've got your oxygen transmission rate and your water vapor transmission rate. Those are the key components. And anytime that you're buying any film, any pouch material, you need to have your letter of guarantee on site anyway, and you need to have your data sheets, right? You need that for your USDA inspection. And on those sheets, it's going to have what your OTR rate is, and it's going to have what your water vapor transmission rate is. And those are just two key elements into the permeability. Matter of fact, it's called the first law of Fisk's first law. And there's a formula how to figure that. And all manufacturers, all extruders have to have that material. So that's key number one, to have that on file so you know exactly what you have. And I'm going to, it's almost like a public service announcement here on this. Films that come from Europe, they have the same studies, but they're done in square metric measurements, not inches squared, right? So when you see two different numbers, you can get confused very quickly. Oh, I thought that was high barrier. No, it was just done in metric. It wasn't done in standard. So I just implore you, when you're getting those materials, understand if your materials are coming from Europe or if they're coming from the US, because you're going to have two different standards for those two permeability studies.
And then say I'm buying a product from you, I put in my order, printed roll stock, so many units. Could I request a letter of guarantee to keep on file with from you guys, showing what I'm going to present as my standard for food safety, I guess?
Yes, absolutely. It is a requirement that you have our letter of guarantee, and through third party audits, we also have to have, source of origin and other documents that are all there on file, so that you've got food grade. In the last 10 years, we've gotten into child labor law and all kinds of things, because we've become into a world economy, right? So many folks don't truly have an understanding of where their film is coming from and what part of the world it's coming from. And so for better clarity, those documents are all now required. And we're proud to show where our products come from. We're representing nothing but quality materials that are all high food grade, FDA compliant and USDA compliant.
And yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And for our listeners, when Mike mentions third-party audits, you're talking about SQF, BRC, GFSI initiatives. Anything else in particular that people might run into? Any other ISO?
Those are exactly the major ones. We're dealing in several different industries, so we're also dealing with AIB and ISO. The different ISO certifications. Yeah. So we're carrying all of those on file. Great. To stay high and to stay with a regulation for the products that we're selling. Nice. Yep, but it really is important, and there's a reason for it, and that standard has created a better product for the entire market.
Now, this is kind of a out of left field question, a little bit off topic, but kind of the same. So something that we run into all the time are, again, these plants that are looking to graduate from the old school vacuum chamber machine to the roll stock or to the VSP. do you have any recommendations? We deal with a lot of diversified plants. We've got 7 to 10 HACCP plants, and many of these plants. What are your feelings on using a machine for raw and fully cooked products, or do you recommend having a machine for each? Are these machines cleanable in such a way that you could schedule your production on separate days, or is this the sort of thing that you want to have 2 dedicated units for sanitation reasons or cross-contamination reasons?
Sure. So first of all, it's what machine are you using to have certification for full wash down? That is absolutely critical.
Mm-hmm.
Any plant that has gotten to a sizable workforce where there's no cross contamination, your workforce has got color coded PPE items, right? Your color coded hair nets, your smocks are color coded. You are not going to use the same machine for both, and I do not suggest that. Right, keep that separate. And if you are going to get it, if you're a smaller plant and you are doing both, you've got to have incredible regulations to make sure that you are maintaining every integrity for your cooked product that had previously had a raw product with it. So our suggestion is always to have a different set of equipment, and you have to consider that if you're doing both, and you can only afford one machine, well, you better go with something where you've got a pouch machine, dual chamber machine, and you've got 2 of them for 2 different setups, rather than buying one roll stock machine and mixing the 2 of them. You're just going down a road that you're leaving yourself up for a huge issue. You talk to anybody who's had a plant with a listeria outbreak, and you're gonna see somebody who's gonna give you the exact same answer, that you never want to go through that.
Yeah, it's something that I think that people who are looking for scalability need to take in consideration during the design process, and then want to know, it's like, do I want this to be a ready to eat, or could I get by with heat treated, not fully cooked? There's the conversation where I think who's ever building out just needs to answer those questions for themselves, I guess.
In my role, I'm a packaging scientist, right? I can give you the chemical breakdown of every one of the 11 layers of this cast film that you're seeing here. That does not replace having a food scientist. Consulting, or it's imperative that you don't skip those steps.
Yeah, I really appreciate you taking the time to answer that, because we have so many people that just want to have one machine, and they don't necessarily understand where we're coming from when we say you really want to separate these things, and cross contamination, ease of clean down, production scheduling. There's so many reasons why you got to get your value proposition and your product specification program down pat before you invest in this sort of machinery. But that's thank you so much for answering that. That's a big burning question for us that we get often. So it's great to have an expert weigh in on that.
Yeah, because we don't. Oh, go ahead.
I would say the hardest thing in my industry, when I go in, and if I didn't explain it earlier, I do not have any of my own customers. I have 40 sales reps out in the field, who their relationships. I am brought in as a consultant who's paid within the company to come in and give advisement. And the hardest thing for me to do is tell somebody no to what their dream is. Of my plan is this, but I feel obligated that I've got to give them the knowledge that I've had over the 26 years of what works, what doesn't work, and what you're up against if you're deciding to push against those established rules.
Yeah, well, we have to, right? Because the food, the world food environment is so different now. I mean, 40, 50 years ago, my mom still washes her chicken off in the sink when she gets it from the store. You know what I mean? And her pork. Like, there was a time 40, 50 years ago when everybody cooked everything to 200 degrees and cooked it to death, and that's just how food safety happened. But this is a world now where, when I have worked retail in Seattle, I would have people come in and buy a steak and take it, at our little market, and take it across the way to the restaurant across the hall, and have those chefs chop that steak up for tartare to order. And it's Americans and people all over the world are eating very, very differently than they used to, and we have to be able to ensure that we're putting out a wholesome, unadulterated product every single time, because we don't know how people are eating things anymore.
especially with everything shipping in the world being so small now, with the with everyone shipping and just an integrated food system. So
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting.
And if you're shipping and you're doing product that you've got in a medium barrier package and you're getting your protection, your shelf life based off of being frozen, and that product becomes unfrozen and unbeknownst to you, and then becomes frozen again, what are you exposing then that finished product? And so that's why you have to have those controls of temperature sensors on shipping containers and trucking, and it's just imperative that when you're taking your package to extreme levels and you're pushing your shelf life to those extreme levels to get as long a distribution as you can possibly get, a couple degrees difference can radically change your shelf life and your expectations, and now you're putting a product out there that can be hurtful. So you've got to respect that, and the training you have to do with your employees, you got to do it, and you got to redo that training over and over again. And it's hard right now because we are in an era where almost every meat plant is short on employees right now.
So true.
But that training's got to be kept up.
So true.
And we feel the responsibility in the packaging side of that.
Yeah, where I work, my regular 9 to 5 is so short, and David does mostly consulting, that I had to pretty much just plead him to come up to work with me for a week to help.
We've had a good week.
Yeah, help get me caught up. So, but it worked out great for this live. So.
Yeah.
Right. That's incredible.
I've got another big question. I've been really looking forward to this. A lot of people that I work with, small companies that Travis and I speak with, that are developing their various sales channels. One of the ones that's really coming up is e-com. E-com's huge, and people don't really realize the cost of going to that. But that's a whole other podcast. We'll talk about that another time. But when it comes to packaging, so we're coming off the line, we're going directly into a blast freezer. We're going to have a frozen product. We're going to ship it overnight or 2-day shipping, depending on what region it's in. What type of packaging for a raw meat product, whether it's raw non-intact or raw intact, what type of packaging would you recommend for a company that's mostly going to be built on e-commerce sales, starting frozen, showing up on somebody's doorstep in less than 48 hours with the potential of a partial thaw?
Oh, I'm so pleased that you just asked this question. So let me start out by answering is that what we saw over the last year and a half during the pandemic is that you've got small plants who said, I've lost my market, but I got to keep producing. I got to keep something going out. And they turn to online sales, right? Yeah. So all of a sudden they're shipping product that they've never shipped before and didn't have an understanding about what they were doing to the packaging and the product itself. So first of all, let's start out with talking about dry ice, right? Dry ice is not ice. Dry ice is a chemical, and it is extremely cold temperatures, and it will fracture packaging in a heartbeat. The vibration in shipping, if you have dry ice directly against a package like this, and you have that dry ice directly on here, you are going to have micro fractures of this film.
Really?
So Yes. And you're not going to notice it right away until you take that and you put it in the refrigerator and you're like, oh, I'm going to thaw this out in my refrigerator and I'm going to have it 2 days from now. And you open up your refrigerator and there's nothing but little blood spots in the bottom of your refrigerator. Wow. That's not a happy customer. Yeah. The reason being is that dry ice was not properly packaged. So when you're packaging with a dry ice, you've got to have a barrier between the dry ice and the product. And on top of that, you should have a barrier between each product inside. When you have, I'm just thinking I'll just go, if you had two products like this, and they're sitting next to each other in a case, and now I'm shipping down a truck, these things are vibrating, right? Yeah. And if it's hardened, even though this feels like a soft corner now, freeze that, and all of a sudden that's a right angle hard corner going against another right angle hard corner, and you're going to have a pinhole sitting right there. Now it's going to hold the vacuum. It's because it's frozen. The packaging is frozen to the side of the meat, so it looks like it's still vacuum packed. But you thaw that out, and the next thing you know, you're going to see that you've got a leaker in here. Doesn't mean the product's bad, but it's going to mean you got a leaker in there and you got a mess in your refrigerator. Sure. So getting back to your core question is how do I package that if I'm going to do e-commerce, right? So There are upgraded film versions of this.
Hmm.
So we do one that is absolutely wonderful product. It actually has a higher nylon content, and we haven't really gotten into the layers of film that's in this, but this is not one layer of plastic. There's 11 layers to that film right there, and there's a reason that we do that, for formability and for strength. And there's also different materials in there, but
Interesting.
we do components that stand up to that real hard freeze temperature, as well as components that help hold up to cook in or hold up to freight and those other type of things. So when you say what packaging should I put that in, you first and foremost are not just talking about the barrier properties to take care of that frozen product, but you're talking about shipping properties that you've got to address. And so you might have what we found is that we got several complaints within the first couple months of the pandemic going on. And what it was, as we went out there and we started surveying, well, why are we having a problem now? They were using the film they've always used before, but never did frozen shipping. They switched to frozen shipping, and now they got the problem. But they didn't bother to tell us at the time. Had we known, we would have said, time out.
Yep.
Wait a minute, there's a different line. We still have it in stock. You can get it tomorrow, but you got to be using the right product. So there's a little bit of education there that had to go on. But I can't express enough that when you prepare a package for frozen shipping, that you must pack that you're minimizing vibration inside the package. You don't want dead space where the product can bounce around. You want to fill that void space, and you want to do a separation between the dry ice and the actual packaging itself.
Okay. Awesome. Wow. I
Yep.
learned so much right there. Thank you. I mean, and when this goes out as a podcast, I know so many people that are going to benefit from that piece of information right there, Mike.
Yeah, and what I'm thinking about too is just all those things where it's like, because working with like a small cut and wrap that uses like a 3 mil bag, right? And then the customer, it's put in a freezer, it's put in a box where it's just like, let's get as much in this box as we can, then, or a freeze tray, and then it goes into a box where the customer boxes it up. Then it's like, hey, 1 out of 5 of these is leaking, but we don't know the steps that happen.
Exactly.
And then it's like, at what point do we go from a 3 mil to a 4 mil to a 5 mil? Like, where do we start solving that problem, I guess?
Right. And you just made a great point that we haven't talked about. We haven't talked about the different mil thicknesses of forming film, right? The further you form that down, the thicker that film needs to be. The thinnest spot of any film is always in those lower 4 corners.
Oh,
right. Okay. That's your thinnest spot as it forms down. And there are different ways that you can help assist that. There are form assist machines, right? So that there's a mold that goes inside and helps get the weight of the film down into the bottom of the product. But you have to be conscious of that fine line between being cost effective and something like this that's a 5 mil. And if I wanted to take this 5 mil and draw it down farther, I can do that, but I'm starting to ruin the integrity of the product where now I can break those corners. And so you can be frugal to a fault. You want the right type of product to be able to finish that up, to be able to finish that package, that the integrity is still there for the end customer at the end.
And your team will be able to assist the buyer with product dimensions and weight to know what thickness would work best for them.
Absolutely. So we do publish a listing with all of our sales reps as to what film should work for what forming, but we always preface it. You must test it. And this is one of the beautiful things that how we go to market is that we've got a service team that most times when you buy these machines and all of a sudden, let's say that machine's not working right, you got to call in a service guy. And he's like, well, it's not the machine, it's the film. You call in the film guy and he says, it's not the film, it's the machine. Yeah. If you haven't had that happen, you haven't owned a meat plant, right?
Yeah.
So what we do is that we have a incredible service team. And I really mean that. These guys are fantastic to work with, and we go in together. I can't tell you how many accounts we go into. It's expensive for us, but we take a service tech and myself or somebody else who's in the film specialist position like myself, and we go in and we're there together, and we're there to listen to what the issues are and to solve that problem. And we can't point a finger to somebody else. We're on the same team. And that's one of the beautiful things that we do when you start talking about how we service product. And and how we go about problem solving. It was actually great to see over the COVID timeframe. We couldn't go out to plants. We couldn't be there in person. How
Oh,
do you solve a
sure,
problem,
sure.
right? We became very savvy at video calls, using Zoom calls, using any format, pictures, that we could be on the phone together solving that problem, both service and myself. And it was at one point, I think we went 12 for 12 for solving problems. And, and then obviously the best part is that we go out there afterwards, and make sure everything is running right. But we've got a great system with solving those problems. And I'm just, quite frankly, I'm really proud of the team that we've put together and assembled.
Yeah, you guys, your company, like with Chuck, when we
Yeah.
interviewed Chuck, he's the same way with
Love Chuck.
with the stunning training, and the consulting that you guys offer is huge. I think especially when it's scary when you're small, you want to make the next step, you don't have money, and you don't want to spend your money poorly, that they could reach out to you, and then you will help alleviate some of the problem solving versus them paying for a consultant that they just kind of have to trust that they know what they're talking about.
Yeah. Honestly, legitimately, no BS. I've worked in a couple of plants, and I consult with several plants that bought a lot of piecemeal equipment from different manufacturers, right? A lot of used stuff, a lot of new stuff, but all for, they'll have a Risco this, they'll have a multivac that, they'll have a riser this, right? And so I've had all of the experiences with the different customer service teams. And there are some companies that
we don't want to talk.
Are on one end of the spectrum, and I've had really good experience with you guys, to be honest. I've been in FSAs before, where we've been backed into a corner, and your team has come out with supporting documentation or helped us, solve problems on the fly when we've got, NRs to deal with. Or I've been working with small plants that don't know anything about this, and they've got a million different products because it's a cut and wrap, and they need someone to walk them through because they just can't picture what does this look like to make this work. And Bunzel has always been really good about that, like, at the top of class. So, yeah, I have appreciated it from a plant manager role, but also as a consultant who doesn't have any skin in the game. Really appreciate your team.
Sure. We run in all the time to small plants that have ownership who's not hands-on, right? So you've got long-term ops managers, and you've got operators who've operated a long time. They're very proud of their machine, but when looking at these machines, it's a cause and effect type of situation. I've got to get this production out today, and my machine's not running well. So the first thing any operator does in any plant that's ever been made is they turn the temperature up.
Yep.
And a lot of times that'll work for day one, right? But you're addressing the effect. You're not addressing the cause. And then 3 or 4 days later on, something else is going on. And so then you take that and they do something else to fix that. They might take the amount of seconds that they do for forming or something, and they change that. So now they've changed 2 parameters. Well, take a month goes by, and what's next? They no longer know what their regular parameters are. And what we do is we remove the cause and effect situation. Our operator, our service techs will go in, and they first go, wait a minute, your machine should have this settings. Let's get it back to those settings, see what your machine's doing, and then fix the true cause of that problem. And then the next thing you know, they're like, oh, my machine's never run this well. Well, exactly, because you've band-aided it enough that you no longer know what your original settings are. And I think that's where our guys caring about that and really truly solving problems. I give an example when those guys go in and they do a PM. We have a set parameter of what we do for preventative maintenance for our yearly or bi-yearly PM. But here's the thing. They go in, they don't just do the PM. They go in and they say, what actual issues are you having? So
Mhm.
while they're doing the PM, they're looking for those other items that they're like, hey, your bladder is going to go out here.
Mhm.
You've got a strip bolt there. You got a leak somewhere in your system, and that's why you're not getting down to the bar that you need to get down to.
Mhm.
There's just certain things that they go through, and they take some pride about where that's going to get, that machine is operating functionally the way it needs to, because they understand if your packaging doesn't work, your line shuts down.
Yeah.
And that's the fact of the
That's
matter.
it.
It's a different level of responsibility of supply when you're handling a company's packaging.
Yeah, especially like when doing when having your guys come out, it would be helpful if you're at a place that may have had a couple overturn cycles. So the person they originally trained or originally was informed hasn't been there for a while, and they're relying on the messages of like three people, and then it's like a copy of a copy where the
Mhm.
information just degrades over time, you know.
I'm
So
sure you guys see some very creative workarounds when you come into facilities, and when they just should have called you in the first place, but instead we knock it twice here, and then we like walk around the machine twice and unplug it once and plug it back. Like, I mean, we've all seen that before.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's just the noise the
Oh,
grinder
it's
makes.
yeah, that's just the
yeah.
noise it makes. Call him, call Mike.
That it was so funny. We were in a plant today running, and I saw one of the gentlemen who were cutting off on the other line, and the grinder was making a vibration noise, and it must have done it enough that he could do his job and hold his right arm up and hold the plate at the same time, so it wasn't vibrating by where his head was. And I took some enjoyment watching that today. And I'm like, oh, you might want to look at that, because I think you'd like to have that employee have two hands doing the work he's doing.
Yeah.
But that's the type of thing that you see. But when you're down to that level, it's always about getting that production done that day, right? That's really what at the employee level, that's what they're trying to do. They know they've got a lot to get out. And they do what they can to get it out, and that's where you sometimes see those shortcuts. And we're there to watch it. We see it even on our MRO side, and blades, and we see people subbing in product that they really shouldn't. And so that's where we go in there and we take a care about what they're putting out. We think their product is essentially our product, right? It's a reflection of us, and that's how we go about our business.
Yeah, totally. Because I mean, people probably want to blame the packaging first, always, when it really is there's so many factors that go into it. I mean, we hear it all the time with leakers, right? Leakers.
Well, yeah, that's my biggest thing is like I had this. I was working for this guy, and he would just only show me reviews. It's like Yelp. It's like why do we always have these leakers? It's like, why don't you tell me about like the 100 times we don't have these leakers?
Yeah. Or how many times was it frozen and then unfrozen? And
Yeah.
was it what kind of truck was it?
What's the chain of command? What's
exactly? Yeah. So many things that can go into it.
We see that all the time where there's some pride going on, and people don't want their proprietary procedures to be known, so they won't give us the full picture. And we go in to do design work on packaging, or to change packaging, or to help them with a problem, and by not letting us know their procedures, they're not letting us come to our full capacity to help them. And that's the biggest thing that what we look for is that we're very cautious about we're not showing any pictures from any plant that we've ever been in. We hold that like our own information, because it's just critical that we don't share it. But we got to build a trust and confidence. If we don't have that, to come in and do packaging, it's very, very difficult to do. And so that's where I think our customers see the value through our entire line, whether it's our sales reps out there who are looking to put the best products into that plant for what their need is, always taking a look at what can be done better. And I think that's what we get with the packaging side. When a customer comes in and they want to do a package like this, and they've never done packaging before, and they want a 2-side printed top film, it's time that I come in and I got to say, whoa, like you haven't walked yet and you're trying to run. And we talk about what could go wrong, what you have to consider with those packages. So it's been quite an enjoyable process. And we've got the AAMP coming up. We really enjoy that AAMP, because this is when the customers can come in a relaxed atmosphere, and we can talk about packaging. We can talk about the PPE and the other products that we do in a very relaxed atmosphere, and talk about what's going on in the marketplace.
So we know AAMP.
Yeah.
we've both been and had a great time. But can you tell us a little bit about AAMP, what that stands for, and because I really wanted to ask you anyways for our listeners, where can they come talk to you or your team and maybe see some of your machines in action? Where is there a convention coming up? And of course, we know AMP is coming up, which your team will be at, and always has a really cool display. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do at AMP and what it is?
Sure. So AMP is really an opportunity where so we put together, it's a smaller size show. It's the American Association of Meat Packers, and it's the 15th through the 17th in Oklahoma City this year. And this is a venue where we get I think we have 8 booths length, and we bring in many of our sales reps, our operations people, and it's a two-way show for us. It's where we can display and show the products that we're putting out in the market, but it's also the place that we can go and listen and find out what other products do we need to be bringing in to supply this market. What's the quality of the product that's out there on the marketplace? What are the problems that are happening? And we do that. It's a perfect venue to do that, and it's also a time where our customers talk to each other. And if you're in the meat industry, it's really the place that you want to go, particularly if you're that mid to small size processor. You're going to learn so much. There's events going on. Yeah, right. It's fantastic, and I'll throw out there, we will provide you a free membership to AMP. If I don't know if you've got that posting, but they can go to that contact point and get a free membership to AMP through us, and not only do they get that, but by being a member, they can get our lowest pricing by being a member. So if you come in, instead of getting a case of knives, you can buy one knife at that case rate by being a member of AMP. So, it's really something you're getting the value there if you join as a membership through us.
AMP has been, I joined a few years ago when I was at the expo in Chicago, and AMP has opened a lot of doors for me. And one of the really big ones was not only being able to be face-to-face, because I'm like a visual learner, and we can talk about things over the internet all day, but when I can see these things happen in person, you can show me, that's when I really retain my knowledge. And I've been able to have that experience at AMP, a couple of times. And but the other thing is like the connections you make within. The networking is nuts, because as we all know, co-packers live under rocks and they don't want to be found because they got more business than you can shake 10 sticks at, right? But you find directories for all different kinds of processors in the AMP book that comes out. You can meet all kinds of people. They'll hook you up with people, and people like you. Being part of AMP is awesome. So I definitely recommend people go to that convention.
Yeah, AMP also helps out with like just general questions you may have with HACCP as well.
Oh wow, no kidding.
Yeah, so they're a good resource. Our the company I work for has been involved with them for I don't even know how old those plaques are that we have on the walls, but yeah.
And you said it was July 15th through 17th in Oklahoma City.
Right. 15th through the 17th. I happened to just look the other day. I know the local hotels that were sponsored are all sold out, but I guarantee you can get something in the area. And if you haven't attended before, this is really something you should consider doing. It's a great society to be part of. It's a great place to learn new procedures, understand what other people are having issues with in the marketplace, and finding those solutions. And it's really a chance to become a partner with many suppliers, not just Bunzl, but your different machine suppliers, your just every aspect of the marketplace, whether it's an HVAC system to a cleaning system to a floor system, you can find it all there.
And you said that Bunzl's sponsoring 1-year memberships for people right now?
That's correct. So if you haven't been a member for 15 years or you have never been a member, we will sponsor your membership for you. And again, if you're a member sponsored through us, we'll give you that deal where you get the lowest cost pricing, where you don't have to buy full cases. You can buy one knife out of a case. You can buy one box of gloves rather than the whole case of gloves, and get the lowest price for that. So there's a real value in joining.
Yeah, the membership itself, it's got to be elite. I'm pretty sure it's like $300. per membership or
Yeah.
more, depending on what level, depending on what type of entity you are. But I definitely recommend to our listeners to absolutely take them up on this, because there's so much value in it.
Yeah, we'll have the link.
Right. And it's,
I was
I
gonna
was
say,
going to say, and ours, what we're talking is the individual membership.
Yeah.
Awesome.
yeah, and we'll have that that link available high up in our show notes too.
Great.
So people could, first thing they see if you're listening and you want to know more about that, check out the show notes. So awesome.
Yep.
Is there anything you want to add, or anything that we missed, or you want to clarify, or anything, Mike?
I guess what I'd want to add is that we've got a great resource for expertise, for specialty, and we also do the poly. We do the CVP bags. There's a number of packaging that we do, but we can really help out with the graphics when you want to consider your graphics. Even if you're just doing the labels, we can still help you out with that. The label systems, those are all things in that packaging realm that we have the expertise on staff that we can help alleviate those problems and create solutions.
Wow. I actually have many more questions. So I hope we get to do this again, Mike. But just one more question based on what you just said. So you not only help with label design, which is a huge deal, but you also help with labeling systems. So do you, if someone, let's say I'm putting this together and I want to upgrade from my old Toledo Martin scale, I want to move to something that's going to apply a label and then potentially work with my my execution software, my production software, or whatever ERP. Is that something that your team can help with as well, like interfacing your packaging machine and your labeling applicator with your live inventory management?
Not to the extent that you're asking that
Sure.
question. We have the contacts in the industry for that.
Awesome.
In even some cases, we will participate in helping bear the expense of the equipment to grow your business in those type of venues. But to be clear, we're not supplying the label systems themselves,
Sure.
right? There are companies that specialize in that. We, because of our position in the industry, are friendly with certain companies that we can help facilitate that relationship.
That's
And our machinist on the roll stock machines, because they're working on those machines, they're very familiar with the label systems, so they can troubleshoot those label systems, at least point out what is wrong, so that when you make your phone call to your label system that's acting up, they know what they say. Hey, we know it's this that's wrong with it. That can really help out and speed up a repair.
Very cool.
Again, if a packaging line is down, the entire plant's down.
Yep.
Right. If you can't package that product at the end of the line, you might as well have the whole plant down.
Yep.
So we understand that responsibility, and that's why we take such a ownership of the entire line to help facilitate that get done for a plant.
And I just want to say, do a visual thing too for like custom exempt and game processors who are doing chub bags. That the scope that people could do is that, right here, this is just something that you have on stock, right? I could place an order and get a case of this, right? And then you could do that. Say that custom guy turns into something bigger.
Sure.
Then we could custom order something like this as well. But this would be something that you would help that person develop, where they could just call up anytime. And this could say ground pork not for sale, ground beef not for sale, or it could just be a white bag that then we put a cask label on or something like that.
Sure. So we have certain stock formats that it's the outside format is stock. And then we have a chub that comes in and prints that inner part that is your logo. It can be a one color or more colors than that when you get started, right? That's your first custom meat bag. And then when you're ready to go full on custom, we can take you right through that process. And you don't have to go alone to go through that. We have several people on staff. This is what they do. And we move more meat bags in the country than any other company. And so we have the staff ready to go. And this every day, meat bags are what they do. So they know it, intimate knowledge of it. And we can supply that product, because that's what you feel like when you're out there. You're in a plant in a rural area, and you're like, how do I even find an artist to get this done?
Yeah.
What's a PDF compared to an AI file?
Mhm.
How do I submit artwork? You don't have to worry about it. You just have to make the call.
Wow.
We'll get that done for you with your input of you do gotta have your logo, and we can assist with that as well. So it's we can just remove a lot of that anxiety, so you can stay being an expert in the meat industry. We'll just provide all those other
I love
aspects
that.
for you.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I've had like a communication breakdown between the graphic designer, the printer, the film, just the whole 9 yards. To know that could be under one roof is, I wish I would have known that a long time ago.
Yeah. Well, I just think about you emailed me earlier this week, Mike, and I was like, I can't download this. Then you're like, all right, I'll give you this other version, just helping relieve that kind of pressure.
Yeah.
And I like to think we're pretty tech savvy.
Yeah,
So.
I think so. Yeah, very cool stuff, Mike.
Yeah, it's and we didn't get in today to talking about process printing and line printing and what the complexities differences are and how that changes your minimums. But again, we've got that on staff.
Mm-hmm.
When those questions come up, you have people that you can ask those questions. And the great thing is that we've got this wonderful sales rep group throughout the country, and they're tied into each one of these folks, right? When you've got a Jarvis issue, right? Our sales rep, everybody knows who Chuck is in our company,
Mm-hmm.
right? He's kind of like a rock star in our company. And so you talk to your local sales rep, you talk to your inside sales rep, they will get you to the right person. That person will give you a call and will help you get through your problem.
Oh, that's awesome. And then what's the best way for people to contact Bunzel?
The best way is the contact through, if they're not currently a customer, jumping on that 800 number and then getting guided through the company into what your needs are. You'll start out as inside sales, is where you'll be guided to. They will listen to what your needs are, and then they will guide you from that point forward.
Okay, awesome. And yeah, everyone check out bunzelpd.com, and we'll have the website and that number available in the show notes. So
yeah, I hope we get to do this again to talk the more technical side of the packaging world. This has been super, super informative for a lot of our listeners, and again, really consider the AAMP membership for individuals and going to the convention if possible. There's so much to learn in those places. I hope everybody checks it out. And
and I think we definitely need to do a part two. We should organize with Dawn and you, and because there's so much more we could cover, and then also maybe do it like a post AMP, see how that went, and the check-in, and everyone go to AMP because of this. Like, most of our biggest career moves have been because of just networking. And I know that doesn't sound like that cool or whatever, but like meeting other people in the industry and meeting other people that like, oh, this is what I'm looking for and this is your skill set, truly helps you maybe get to a place you didn't know you want to be. So
yeah,
check out AMP.
I've learned more at conventions that I have on the line in some cases, no doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt.
And someone asked, when is AMP? It's in Oklahoma, July 15th through the 17th. So
cool.
Perfect. And we will have our meat bag specialist will be one of the gentlemen working the booth. His name's Les Mays. Ask for him by name, but he'll be there every day of AMP. Be able to answer any questions you have in your meat bag product line.
Well, with 8 booths, I imagine a lot of you guys will be there to yeah.
we have a large presence there.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, great.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Mike, and I think this is great. So thanks for making the time. I know you're busy. You've been traveling nonstop for the last 2 weeks, so thank you so much for this.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Mike. Learned a lot today.
You got it, guys. Really appreciate that. Lot more that we can cover into detail. So look forward to our future talks.
Us too.
Right. Awesome. All right.
All right,
Thanks
guys.
so much.
All right.
Bunzel Processor Division has been in the food, processing, and packaging industry for over 135 years, offering over 35,000 of high-quality products designed specifically to meet the needs of the meat processing, butchery, food processing, and janitorial industrial industries. Bundle Processor Division also specializes in packaging equipment and supplies, offering the Multivac P Series line of chamber packaging machines, as well as the Clarity line of shrink bags, roll stock film, and vacuum pouches. They have numerous product experts and outstanding customer service. And let's not forget, free UPS ground shipping on all orders over $400 or more.